In every great love story, the one who gets the most often says the least. For 20 years, that was Mary. Not from a lack of words, but from a deeper understanding. The loudest voice isn't the strongest. So she watched. And she waited. She built a quiet empire while cameras looked the other way. Then suddenly the whispers became too loud to ignore. They weren't about her. They were about her husband and a 20-year-old Filipina who had carved out a piece of their world. When Mary finally broke her silence, it stunned everyone. It wasn't anger. It wasn't ice. It was a statement that silenced the internet just before the tears started. But to understand that moment, we have to rewind. This isn't a story about a viral video or a trending hashtag. It begins with a boy from Mallorca who became a myth, and the girl who loved him before the legend was born. There are legends, and then there is Rafael Nadal, 22 Grand Slams, 14 French Opens, a number so staggering it defies belief. 109 weeks as world number one. His forehand wasn't a tennis stroke, it was a winning argument with the laws of physics. For 2 decades, the world saw him bleed on clay and fight through career-shattering injuries. We saw him break down in press conferences, his pain too raw to watch only to somehow rise again. To be a Rafa fan was agonizing. Every time he limped off court, you knew he was giving more than the sport ever had a right to ask. And behind it all, silent and steadfast, was Mary. Her name is Maria Francisco Perello, but most know her as Mary or Zizka, a childhood nickname from Mallorca. She was just 17 when she truly met him. Not the champion, just Rafa, the local boy, introduced by his sister. The connection was quiet like all the best ones are. And as that boy became the undisputed king of clay, the greatest the sport had ever seen, she stayed, not out of obligation but by choice. She made that choice every single day. People saw her standing beside a giant, but they missed the point. She was building her own legacy, a business degree, a postgraduate education in Barcelona. Since 2012, she led the Rafa Nadal Foundation, eventually as CEO, running the charitable heart of his empire for a decade. She guided that foundation with the same quiet precision that defined her entire life. She is not a side character in his biography. She is her own story running parallel to his never asking for credit. She chose privacy like a religion with deliberate, unwavering faith. In an interview back in 2011, she laid it out with a clarity people never forgot. Constantly following Rafa on tour, she explained would poison their relationship. The thought of just waiting for him all day would crush her. That wasn't bitterness. It was wisdom. She knew who he was, who she was, and the space they needed between them to survive the pressure. For 20 years, that code held. She stayed out of the spotlight he owned, and the world respected the boundary she drew. Until the talk about Alex made that boundary impossible to defend. And to get why, you first need to understand Alex and how she captured the world's attention. Picture it, you're 13 years old. You're from Quezon City in the Philippines, from a family where sport is the air you breathe. Your mother is a swimming medalist. Your brother plays college tennis in America. And from the moment you first grip a racket, you feel this undeniable pull. A feeling that something incredible is waiting for you on the other side of hard work. Now imagine that feeling carries you across the world to a sun-drenched island in the Mediterranean. To a campus in Manacor, Mallorca, founded on the principles of one single man, the greatest clay court warrior to ever live. That was the journey of Eala, one of modern tennis's most incredible stories. She enrolled in the Rafa Nadal Academy in 2018 as a junior phenom. She didn't just visit. She became part of its fabric training for years under that same unforgiving system. That same relentless culture that created the man himself. It didn't just change her game, it changed her. The academy didn't just teach tennis strokes, it taught you how to stare down failure. It taught discipline as an investment in your future. It taught you to perform even when the stands are empty. Alex absorbed every lesson. Her graduation in 2023 was a landmark moment. Iga Świątek, the reigning world number one, was the guest speaker. Let that sink in. This wasn't just some award. It was the tennis world demanding, watch her. Then 2025 hit and everyone saw why. She stormed the Miami Open, the first Filipina ever to make a WTA 1000 semi-final. Her path was a war zone littered with top 10 giants like Madison Keys and Iga Świątek herself. She was only 19. She moved with a veteran's poise forged since she was 13 to know this stage was not a privilege. It was her destiny. And from his quiet retirement in Mallorca, Rafa watched a surge of unexpected pride moving him to send a single text. You could see she was still reeling. His first personal message, she said, was a complete shock. She didn't even see it for 2 days, lost in the glorious storm of her victory. Let that sink in. 6 years grinding in his academy, 6 years shouldering his ethos through every brutal practice, every moment of self-doubt. And the first private word from the master himself only came when she achieved the impossible. That's not a business deal. That's the bond of family. November 19th, 2025. 1 year to the day since Rafa's final farewell. Malaga, the Davis Cup Finals. His family watched as tears streamed down that famously stoic face. The burden of a legend finally laid to rest. 365 days of a new life. A father, a golfer, a philanthropist. Quiet mornings with Mary and their boy. A year of piece of learning to unclench his fist. And then on that very day he picked up his weapon again. Not for the fans, not for the cameras, not for a show. He did it for Alex. On November 19th, Rafa and Alex on court at his academy. The footage that leaked didn't just go viral, it paralyzed the tennis world. Deep punishing baseline rallies. Two lefties trading thunderous ground strokes as if time itself had stopped just to watch them. Later, Rafa posted online, said it felt incredible to be back after a year. Then he tagged her directly. "Great practice, Chloe," he wrote, adding, "Next time I'll be stronger." Alex's reply on Instagram came in 2 parts. First, "Thank you for today, Rafa." Then a separate post, "Back like you never left." The internet absolutely erupted. That footage was inescapable. Filipino fans wept. Spanish fans were stunned silent. Every tennis fan on earth shared it, debated it, felt something powerful they couldn't quite name. Alex spoke with pure, unvarnished honesty. It was a dream, she said, the kind of thing you can't even imagine happening. Just sharing the court with him was an honor. It was the very first time they'd ever hit together. A memory for life, she called it. And watching it all from somewhere inside that compound was Mary, the woman who'd spent 2 decades guarding her husband's privacy with surgical precision. Her entire public persona was built on staying out of the spotlight. She more than anyone knew the price Rafa paid for his passions. She saw him step back on that court after a full year away. And she saw he did it for Alex. And the question already whispering across the internet was now barreling straight for her. Because when a private wall is breached by something beautiful, the thing that rushes in to fill the void is often ugly. Most of the reaction was exactly what you'd expect: pure admiration, pure pride. Especially from Filipino fans. They'd seen her rise from a prospect to a top 50 star, all inside his academy. Now she was on court with the man himself. It was a beautiful moment. But the internet has a way of twisting everything toward its darkest possible angle. And so the comments began to shift. A loud, persistent fraction started asking different questions. Questions about why Rafa chose that specific day and why he chose to spend it with Alex. Questions about their closeness. Questions about a man who preached family now back on court for a young woman his wife had never even mentioned in public. Suddenly, old details long forgotten resurfaced with a new sinister glow. Alex's coach had once mentioned Rafa stepping in personally at the academy, not out of duty, but because he saw himself in her struggles. He'd grabbed a racket mid-sentence, feeding her serves to prove a point, leaving the young star completely speechless. Bosch had called it what it was, the sheer luck of being at the Rafa Nadal Academy. But now, filtered through the lens of that viral video, people saw something else entirely. The forums caught fire. YouTube exploded with conspiracy videos. Hashtags spawned by the hour. This is the price of privacy in the public eye. When you don't give them a story, they invent one for you. And the story they were building was toxic. Mary, for her part, had never said a word to the public, ever. Model, not about the losses, the injuries, or the relentless noise surrounding her husband's legacy. Silence had always been her armor, but this time it was different. Even Alex had praised Rafa's character in a recent interview, calling him grounded despite staggering success, admiring his unshakable kindness above all. Her candid praise only fueled the public's hunger to know what was happening behind closed doors. So Mary chose to speak. The world braced for the expected. Some predicted jealousy, a wife quietly marking her territory. Others awaited a sanitized PR statement, a masterpiece of saying nothing at all. Most expected nothing. Just the familiar, calculated silence from tennis's most private figure. They were all wrong. Instead, Mary gave them something forged over 20 years of truly knowing a man's soul. She explained Rafa's bond with Alex. Mentoring the young star was not a distraction from his career's end. It was an expression of his spirit. The academy was his answer to the athlete's final question. Where does the fire go when the game is over? It was how he passed on the code he lived by the discipline, humility and defiance once his body could no longer fight on the court. And Alex was living proof it worked. In his own farewell, Rafa had called Mary his perfect partner on the journey. Confessing their family their home was the anchor that kept him steady through it all. That was how Mary saw it all. Not as a new problem, but as the next chapter. He was a man who saw a young player struggle and did not just watch from the sidelines. His instinct was to grab a racket and teach. Her words were not a defense. They were a declaration of pride. She spoke of her husband with the certainty of one who knows his true character away from the cameras. She framed Alex not as a threat, but as part of their shared legacy. The internet was primed for a war. What it got was grace. And that is what truly stunned everyone. We have been conditioned to expect the explosion. The bitter accusations, the icy denials, the legal firewalls. We have seen too many stories end in ashes to recognize one that ends in quiet strength. For 20 years, Mary has shown that real power is knowing who you are and never wavering. She just proved it again. The story of Rafa and Alex, the legend and the prodigy, is not a scandal. It is no surprise if you knew the man he has always been. It is proof that greatness never truly retires. It just finds a new way to give. And the one person who knows him best saw it for exactly what it was, not a threat,